Well, hi there, and welcome to Madre Selva, in the very heart of the Amazon rainforest. We have come here to spend several days looking for as many diverse lizards as we possibly can and show them all to you. Come along with me. This skinny little lizard is a blue-lipped forest anole. And these are really, really neat. Anole's lizards, I love them. We've got quite a few of them in the pet trade, but there are so many more down in the tropics and here in the Amazon. And this one is really neat. It's long and skinny. It acts like a stick most of the time. And both the males and the females, they've got a little blue flag, which is called a Dewlap. They can stick out and they communicate all kinds of things with that Dewlap to one another. It's actually that blue flag that you use to identify the blue-lipped forest anole. You can also identify it because when they open their mouths, right in the corners of their mouth, there's a little bit of blue there. Very cool little lizard. He's very pleasant too, just kind of hanging out. These positively glorious lizards are banded trionoles, which they're unreal. I hadn't seen them out in daylight until just now. In the dark, I thought the female was even more striking than the male. Now that I have them outside, you tell me. They're both ridiculous, but quite a bit of sexual dimorphism between the male and the female. You can see the male has a crest on the back of his neck, and obviously his coloration and pattern are very different. Both of them have these just really remarkable blue eyes, which is glorious, glorious. And they are well known for their incredible color changeability. These guys can change colors a lot, and what they're showing right now is just positively remarkable. These are some of the most beautiful lizards I've ever seen in my life. I'm just over the moon with these. Holy cow. This is one of the lizards I was the most excited to see of all when we came down here. For the most part, I just wanted to see, what was here, how much diversity. I was excited to be surprised, but a few years ago, I started seeing pictures come up of these, the western leaf lizard, and I don't know what it is about them. They look like a dead leaf. They are a spectacular leaf mimic, and I've seen a lot of, especially frogs and butterflies, that are excellent dead leaf mimics, and they're very, very cool. Katydids, a lot of great katydids that are dead leaf mimics. But there's just something about a lizard with that pattern. I don't know. They blow me away. And I love anything with a dark eye mask like this. Kind of reminds me of the false water cobra. It's just such a pretty little lizard. Don't want to let him get away from me. On the first day that we were here, I saw one in the wild and I was so excited, and it escaped from me. And I learned a little bit about how these guys act in the wild. So I found him up basking on a leaf. He held really still, so I was able to get some good shots of him, get close to him. And then suddenly, he dropped to the ground, but he was still there. And he's a leaf mimic, so he relies on camouflage, not speed to escape, but he's fast. So he'll dart just a couple feet, maybe less, and then he'd hold perfectly still. See if his camouflage works again, and if it doesn't, he darts again, and then holds still. Just stops on a dime, holds still. And he did that a couple times. I thought I was easily gonna be able to catch him because he wasn't running very far at any given time, and then he just disappeared. I looked everywhere, I could not find him. This is actually the third one we've encountered, because we had one before and somebody was taking a picture of it and it got away and disappeared. And so I'm trying not to let this one get away and disappear because I really want to let you guys see it. I'm super excited about these lizards. I love them. The western leaf lizard. This little beauty is a turnip-tailed gecko, which is actually one of the largest, if not the largest gecko in this area. It's also one of the few truly nocturnal geckos. You can usually tell a nocturnal gecko because they've got, not only do they have vertical slit pupils, but during the day when the pupil is not dilated, it turns into like multiple tiny little diamond pupils in a row. And it opens up into one big pupil, but you can see just multiple little entrances in their eyes. Really fascinating looking, just beautiful gold. Other than that, it's kind of just a brown, beautifully patterned, but you know, sort of browns and blacks, with a little bit of creams on them. They've got toes that are webbed, not entirely, but kind of a little bit like Rhacodactylus on those toes. And then their tail, that's what they're known for. It's a little bit of a fatty tail. It actually reminds me of Rhacodactylus too, almost like a Saracenorum gecko. And this one you can see he's a boy. He's got a pretty prominent hemipenal bulge, but a very pleasant little gecko, really soft skin. I think they can shed that skin to escape like day geckos will. So I'm trying to be very, very careful with this guy. They can also drop their tails, of course. Cool dude, cool dude. This is a bridled forest gecko, and it is a beautiful little boy. The males in these are very brightly colored and beautiful. They got really pretty heads. The females are much more drab in color, kind of just a brown, mottled sort of a color. But these males, oh my goodness, they got reds and blues and yellows and peacock spotting. I mean, they're right up there with any day gecko. And they're really interesting too because their toe pads are very, very small. This isn't arboreal gecko, but I'm actually not sure they have any toe pads at all. It looks like they climb entirely with claws. Very, very cool little geckos, but not quite as cool as their cousins, which are even brighter. While you guys are enjoying this footage of courting and mating whiptails, don't miss the hemipene at the end. I just want to say thank you to our patrons at Patreon who made this entire expedition possible. We couldn't have done this without you. And look at all we're finding. This is amazing. If you'd like to support us doing more things like this in the future, or if you want to see the extra content we have for our patrons at Patreon, please check it out and consider supporting us. This active little guy is a forest whiptail, and these are the lizards that not so long ago interrupted us with a little courtship. Some morpho butterfly. This is a distracting place. Anyway, they popped out right here behind us and decided to court and then to breed. I called them amoebas because this is the largest whiptail I've ever seen. And usually bigger whiptails are amoebas. In reality, they're all whiptails, including the tegus. So these are part of the family Tyidae, and the tyids include the tegus, the amoebas, and the whiptails, and I love whiptails. I mean, really, this is just a small tegu. You see he's got a little forked tongue. You get an up-close look at his face. It's a tegu face. They got the same sort of scalation, top and bottom, the same banding on their tail. You know, the varanids, they're all called monitors. The tyids are all called whiptails. So Gus, just a ginormous whiptail. But this is the forest whiptail. We'll get back to their even arguably more beautiful cousin later, but I got super distracted with those amoebas breeding over there. Those are tyid lizards, and this is a microtyd called a forest lizard. I need to figure out exactly how they are related to the tyid lizards. They may be part of the family Tyidae, but I need to look into that a little bit. They do have a lot of very similar features. They've got some kind of big sort of armory, almost like caiman lizard scales on their back, and then their bellies. Sometimes they're keeled. This one's not keeled, but they've got big plates. In a lot of ways, it looks like a very tiny crocodile tegu. They're very, very cool. They've even got the spots on the side. I wouldn't be surprised at all to find out they're closely related to the crocodile tegus because it is built like one. They got these pretty golden eyes and these amazing red tails. How rad is that? How rad is that? This is a female Amazon forest dragon. Dragon is usually a name reserved for the agamid lizards, which are not actually present here in the Americas. But this does have a very agamid lizard appearance to it. It's kind of got a short face, almost, and this isn't an agamid, but a face a lot like a desert iguana, which is another iguanid. And this ridge down the spine, which many iguanas have. This is an iguanid lizard, but also many of the agamids have that. But there's just something about the scales and just the build of this lizard. It does feel very much like an agamid lizard. And one very cool thing about these guys is they often open their mouths in their threat displays. This little girl here, and I don't want to upset her too much, she's got kind of a bright white mouth. Some species of forest dragons, though, have bright yellow mouths that they open up when they're a little bit startled and want to scare you. But they're actually, and this lizard has been very, very easy. You can see a lot of the lizards I have to hold on to pretty tightly, because if I let them go, they're gone. And we want to get them back to where they belong. But this lizard here, I've just got, you know, this is like it's my pet lizard. I'm actually falling in love with this lizard very quickly. It's very special. I think I'm going to make a whole video just on the reptiles that I absolutely have fallen for while I've been here. And I think this one might be on that list. This is another Amazon forest dragon, but this one is a male. He's a little more brightly colored, though his colors are not as bright right now as they were when we found him. But you can see he's got a much taller crest, as is common of many iguanids, and just a lot of cool colors. He's got kind of orange on his belly, he's got a little yellow here on his throat, he's got stripes on the side. Let's see what color his mouth is, shall we? You're not gonna tell me? You're not gonna tell me what color your mouth is? I guess there's some mysteries we just have to live with. So this one here is an olive tree lizard, and this is a collared tree lizard, and they are both quite spectacular indeed. You can see there are some slight differences. The coloration varies quite dramatically between them. The olive is more olivey colored. The collared has that color, and just some really gorgeous, gorgeous banding. These guys both live kind of up in and on trees. These guys, the olive tree lizards, tend to be out on the thinner branches a little bit more than these guys, which tend to prefer the trunks. Though at night, which is when we're finding a lot of these lizards, all of them tend to head out to the ends of the branches where the world is a little bit less scary, at least in terms of nighttime predators, and that's where they sleep. Yeah, two pretty rad lizards. Let's see what else we've got. This is another microtiid, and I did recently, since we talked about the last one, learn that Microtiidae is its own family of lizards. So they are probably related to the tiid lizards, but these guys are smaller. This one is a baby. It's got kind of a bluish tail, a really pretty red face, which is sort of unusual. Though I do see a lot of baby lizards with bright colored heads, and I don't know if that's to indicate something to older individuals so that they know they're juveniles and don't defend their territory, don't attack them, don't eat them, things like that. Because usually when they've done studies on colored body parts, on juveniles, you a lot of times get bright colored tails, and that's largely because it draws the attention of predators. And if a predator swings and gets your tail, you can drop your tail. You don't want that. Also, if they swing and try to get your tail, they often miss completely. But if they swing and try to get your head, usually they get something. So it's really, I don't understand entirely why you get these bright colored heads on a lot of juvenile lizards. My guess is it has something to do with communication to older individuals that they're juveniles. But this is a really tiny, really pretty little microtiid. This is the Amazon mud turtle, who is a very cool turtle. Oh, he's just so grumpy. He's grumpy and he has every right to be. So these are an aquatic turtle, and it appears to me that in the not so distant past, he was probably bitten by a caiman. And I'm gathering this because, well, he's missing an eye. He's got a break here in his upper shell, the carapace, and he's got multiple holes in his lower shell, the plastron. And they look spaced about like a very large caiman's teeth. So this guy is probably pretty lucky to be alive, maybe because he's such a fighter. But he is a mud turtle, and we've done a video in the past on mud musk and stinkpot turtles. He is part of that group, which actually makes him kind of unusual down here in South America. One thing that distinguishes these guys, if you're looking at them, they're actually pretty rare here where we are, outside of Iquitos, Peru, in Madre, Selva. They have a double hinged plastron, so it has a hinge in the back and a hinge in the front, which allows them to close up really, really well. He obviously didn't get it closed fast enough to save that eyeball, but maybe fast enough to save his life. Pretty tough shell. It's pretty domed for an aquatic turtle. And yes, you're very grumpy. You're very grumpy, and we totally understand. But the unusual thing about these guys really is that they're part of the hidden-necked turtles, in that they pull their head straight back. Most South American turtles are side-necked turtles, in that they bring their head in to the side to conceal it underneath their shell. So this is a fairly uncommon lineage of turtles down here in South America, and it's really exciting to get to see one. Yeah, I'd be grumpy too if I'd been through all you have. Yeah. You had a rough day, didn't you? I think he's gonna pull through though. Guys, look at this. This is a dwarf caiman. This is a smooth front caiman in the wild. These are some of my favorite crocodilians because the little dwarf caimans are the only ones that I think maybe under the right circumstances could happen in my life someday. But I can't believe I'm getting to hold one right out of the wild today. Look at this little guy. This is not a very old caiman. And you gotta be careful when you see baby crocodilians like this. Sorry about the cicada, hopefully you can hear me. But you gotta be careful when you see baby crocodilians like this because they're usually accompanied by their mother. And these are dwarf caimans. They're considerably smaller than a lot of crocodilians, so mom is probably no more than about 4 feet long. Dad would be about 6 feet, possibly. Usually not even that big, but he's not gonna be around. Mom will be around somewhere. And when you grab a baby crocodilian, a lot of times they go, ah, ah, ah. And that means, Mom, could you come over here and kill these guys? And probably not with the dwarf caiman, but a lot of caimans would be happy to at least give it their best shot. They will protect baby. Crocodilians are great parents. And this guy though, he's such a little cutie. He gave me a little nip. Hey buddy, he gave me a little nip just a minute ago when I was first trying to get him. And that's my first crocodilian bite. No big deal. But I'm pretty excited. You have every right to bite me. You have every right to bite me, buddy. I don't blame you a bit. You're so cute. I want to show you guys some cool things I hadn't noticed about crocodilians till recently. And one of the things is their little ears. This little flap covers their ear, but you can always see when they're listening because they crack it open right there at the front. That's how you know it's time to listen. Then in the back of their mouth, they've got a valve that closes up the mouth, and that is what keeps them from taking on water when they've got something in their mouth and they're thrashing it before they try to swallow it down. This guy, being a dwarf caiman, is quite well armored, and his little feet here in the back, they've got very, very little webbing because the dwarf caimans spend a lot more time on land than most of their bigger cousins. These are some of my favorites though, an absolute dinosaur. The smooth-fronted caiman. And last, but only arguably least, is this cute little guy, the collared forest gecko. These are really neat geckos. They are a little bit different than most geckos in a few different ways. They're about the size of a mourning gecko, though there are males and females, and there's quite a bit of sexual dimorphism, at least in terms of color. So they're dichromatic between the males and the females. This one is a male. He's been fired. Well, he's been fired in sort of a very dark color. I've seen him be very, very bright at other times. You can identify them by their little partial collars. They should be called the partially collared forest gecko, but I'll live with this. But they are cute little guys. So some of the weird things about them, they're a diurnal gecko, as actually most of the geckos here are. And so they have round pupils, which is different than most of the geckos that you'll see in most parts of the world. They are an arboreal gecko, but they lack toe pads. So they just have claws with which they hang on to things. They don't have the toe pads that are typical of mini geckos. And another thing that's unusual is that the females in the breeding season lay clutches of only one egg. Anole tends to do that, but geckos usually lay 2 eggs in a clutch. These guys just lay the one, but they lay a bunch of clutches every year, so it's not just one and done. I'm just starting to change color now. Starting to see some of that pattern come through. Very cool collared forest gecko. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this adventure here at Madre Selva, but I will tell you, rumor has it that where we're going next is even more species rich than this, and we're going to bring you every lizard from there too. So if you don't already subscribe to this channel, now might be a good time. So as always, like and subscribe, and we hope to see you real soon. These are little teid lizards, like miniature tegus. quite a bit bigger than whiptails though. They're probably like 1.5 feet long and beautiful. I think that one above is a female. And this little one down low that's so brightly colored and gorgeous is a male. And it's interesting the way that the female appears to be trying to communicate something to that other one. How cool is this, guys? Nope, I think I had the sexes backwards, and that is mating. They are mating right now. Look at that.
Time to go. See that, honey.